Three. Hello, everybody. So here I am with Thomas Lawrence, and we're going to have a nice, fun conversation about his journey through architecture. I'm Darwin Fortuna, your host of the Small Firm Exchange. And to give you a little bit of context, the Small Firm Exchange has been focusing on practice this year. Practice is the topic that we all care about this year, and we're going to be essentially exploring what that means with Tom and what that means for all small firms within the nation. So quickly, I'll give you an intro of Tom. So Thomas Lawrence is a seasoned Seattle architect with 40 years in single family homes experience, has completed over 250 residential projects in the Pacific Northwest. He also holds a Master's of Architecture from the University of Washington and a Bachelor of Environmental Design from the North Carolina State University. A few highlights: registered in Washington since 1987, just a little bit. Is an AIA member since 1987 also, and has been involved in many different committees within the AIA and also task forces, including the Small Firm Exchange, which he's a board member of for the state of Washington. He's a founder of Lawrence Architecture since 1995. Has had some important roles in firms like Malum and Norfords, Edward Weinstein Associates, and James Cutler Architects. He's also gained some notoriety with awards, including the AIA Seattle Honors Awards and some national recognition from the AIA and awards. Just a little summary, but I'll let you guys know his resume is big. It's long and robust, and I had a hard time summarizing it to that. But Tom, was that good enough? Did I miss anything that you're really proud of that you should probably that you want us to talk about?
Well, I would reiterate that I've been a supporter and participant in the AIA since actually before I was registered, and I think I truly think it's our professional voice. So it doesn't if you're not involved, you don't really have a major voice in our profession. So I encourage everybody to participate in the AIA in whatever form they might.
Excellent. Now, Tom, let's travel back in time, the beginning of time. Why architecture, and why a firm? Why opening a firm? And I'm curious about you because particularly you've scaled back over the years and you're basically solo, and the reward's still there, the fun and the joy is still there. Like, I see you very driven and very enthusiastic about design and architecture. So, but let's go back to that beginning. Why did you get into architecture?
One of my grandfathers was actually an engineer, but he worked for the state of North Carolina, and I noticed several times that he had rolls of drawings. He was the state property officer, so he was the sort of the client for any building in the state of North Carolina, and so he often had building plans, and that was I was really enamored by looking at these drawings and then thinking about how they would be transformed into physical objects. So that was from a very early age, and then it developed from there. And fortunately, you mentioned I went to North Carolina State. They had a very good architecture program, so that was an easy thing to do. That was from an early age, and so one thing just led to another. And I have been very fortunate to be around great people that mentored me, and also have been have offered advice over the years, and really encouraged me to participate in the profession.
Very good. And so, from those early drawings to enrolling into architecture, I always wonder, one thing is what intrigued you to get into the field and what has kept you in the field, because I'm always like, sometimes you think that you fit within a world, and then you realize that there's some struggles, right? It's never really that straightforward, right? And perfect. So I want to know more about that, like that journey into, staying and what that was early on.
It was that's interesting. Let me back up just a bit, and so I went to North Carolina State. I my unlike, some of my friends, my family has a tradition of college. So I was expected to go to college, unlike my other friends who wanted to go. So I would say I was an okay student, a good student, but I don't know that my heart was always in it. But when I got out and I started working, I worked for several years while my wife, who's also now an architect, she would
Yes.
we met in school. She went back to graduate school first. So I had some time out of school working, and I realized that I really did enjoy the profession. So that when I did go back to school at the University of Washington, I was there because I wanted to be there, not because I was expected to be there. So I found graduate school to be an extremely rewarding experience, and I think that's when I really developed a passion for architecture. I had one great design studio, and I ended up working for two of the instructors who are just really fabulous architects and really mentors. You mentioned two of them, Jim Cutler and Ed Weinstein, and I really credit them for my development to as good an architect as I can be. But I never had anticipated having my own firm. So I think that's for me, it was I just fell into it really. I worked for those two firms that I mentioned. Then I decided that I'd never worked in a large firm, so I went to Malem and Nordfors. I was on an AI committee with the design director there. He convinced me that it was really good would be a good place. I would be a good fit. Unfortunately, after about a year, he decided to move back home to Kansas. So the firm structure at that time changed. I actually I came home one day and I mentioned to my wife that I really wasn't having fun doing what I was doing. Not that and not everything can be fun, as we all know. But she said just casually, "Well, if you're not having fun, why don't you just quit?" And you know, I guess I'm like a lot of architects, I guess I'm a type A underneath everything, and I never really considered that. And I thought, well, maybe I just should. So I did. And
Wow.
yeah. So after work, we had an old house, and it's kind of like an old car. You work on it. So I was working on our house, and one thing led to another. Somebody, a friend would call me and say, "Hey, I hear you're not working. Are you interested in doing a project?" And so I literally just fell into working on my own. And so yeah,
I kind of have to stop you there because for me, it's shocking that okay, so you worked for these amazing architects, smaller size firms, who you credit for being who you are, which is amazing. Always being thankful to others, and finding those angels of people that guide you. But going to this larger firm, which was kind of a little itch of yours, right? Of what's like to work at a bigger firm, and then realizing that you're not having fun, that you're not enjoying it. And as you said, not everything can always be fun. It's if it was, then tough times come. Um, but being able to tell your wife, "I'm not having fun," and how remarkable it is from her to say, "Stop," and just have your own firm. That mindset just tells me how great of a partner she is, by the way. And but it's something that I don't know if culturally or educationally, not everybody has a partner or is in a position where someone can literally tell them, "Why don't you just quit and do it?" So I'll tell you a little bit about me, so you get this. I'm divorced now at this point. It's been about I was married for 7 years. I was just getting started with Flow, and and there was always this saying within the conversations internally of, "This isn't a real job. Why don't you go get a real job?" Which is the opposite of what you got, right? Like working
yeah,
for myself has never, even as I was getting divorced, it was like, or why don't you just get a real job where you can make over $100,000 easy with the experience and knowledge that you have, and you don't have to be worried about getting clients and fighting all this stuff and struggling because it's been a struggle. So in your end, it wasn't even about money; wasn't a factor. Like I just and I guess that's why I say culturally is a different mindset. Although my wife my ex-wife is a was born in the United States, as American as it can be, but I'm a Dominican Latino from the DR, which things don't register the same way. But you got that thing. Like, what was your concern then? Like, was there any concerns? Was it that easy to shift?
Yeah, it wasn't, but as you mentioned, I'm extremely fortunate to have the partner I do, and um, she's been great in a number of ways. Actually, as an architect, it's great. Even though we do different things, she does preservation related work. So our work is quite different, but it's great to have somebody that you get advice from. And when she's usually, much more correct than I am. And even, sometimes you don't want to hear the advice you hear, but in that case, it was, yeah, that was life changing and life. It was really transformative to me to have somebody say, well, if you're not enjoying a larger firm, which, that was why I went there, to see if that was a good fit. Well, it turns out it wasn't really a good fit for me. And, in the end, I started my own practice.
Mm.
Moving forward, I worked from home, as now I'm back here. I worked from home for a couple of years, and my work was all word of mouth. The experiences I had were small scale, mostly residential work, so that was sort of what I fell into.
Mm.
And but I had so much work, I realized I needed to have, either I had to turn down work or hire people. I got up to 4 people, but as each time I added somebody, I realized what I most enjoy is working with clients and doing the work. And every time I added another person, I thought, well, I'm getting, it's not very, wasn't very many people, but I was getting further away from doing what I enjoyed most, is it just working on projects and working with clients. And so I started, if somebody left, small firm, often people work for a few years and they move on and want to learn, have other experiences, learn different things. And so when somebody would leave, I wouldn't replace them. And now it's been, oh gosh, I guess it's been maybe 12 years since my last employee left. And for a while, I continued to share an office space with 2 other small firms. But then eventually, pre-COVID, I actually moved back home to my office here. And I've been fortunate that my projects are quite small, so they're the type that I can do by myself.
Mm-hmm. Now, very, very interesting, and you're certainly a perfect example of you can have a pretty good life as a solo architect, as a solopreneur, and succeed. I mean, you've won awards, you've done pretty remarkable things. I remember looking at your business card too, which you promote some of your work at the back of them, and it was remarkable stuff, right? You have your own portfolio everywhere you go. So, but that said, how do you manage it? How have you been managing it? Meaning, and I actually want to go back. What was it about the big firm that you didn't like? What was it about working at a big firm that didn't fit right with you? Because that was the moment where you could have gone to another smaller firm architect as a partner, maybe, at that point, or principal, higher level designer, like lead, senior architect or something like that. And probably still would have been doing the same things that you love, which is just design. You could do that, right? You can find a firm that you fit right in. But like, so you had multiple choices. The choice of just going on your own wasn't the only one. It looked like it was the only one, but you had all the choices.
Well, this is Seattle. It's not a huge town architecturally speaking. And I went to graduate school here, and I knew most of the firms. And I worked for 2 of the best firms in town, in the city, before I worked for the larger firm. And it's like, well, I potentially could go back to one of those, but who else would I want to work for? And I really I didn't have a clear direction that way, because I did work for really great architects, and it was more, it wasn't the design philosophy that I left because I had tremendous respect for the two architects I worked for are just amazing, better architects than I could ever be. But it was more, they ran their firm as they would, and it was just a little different than I thought I would. And I guess maybe that's why I fell into.
So what would that be? I want to understand.
Oh,
And I guess you don't have to get into the particulars, if anything, but it's different styles. But I just want to know, what was it about that, right? Like how, because then we're gonna get into how you run your firm, which is good. We all want to break away from something, but like what, I found that something sometimes chases me back over the years, and I realized, wow, now I understand why the old no hair or gray hair architects knew better than me. And I thought I was breaking away, being a rebel. There you go. But I'm not really breaking that far away, because there's some roots there that were worth exploring, and I just didn't understand it. All right.
Well, in hindsight now, I guess the reason that I'm now back to being a sole practitioner is that I guess in the larger firm, I was directing a larger group of people. I think, I was working on some larger school projects, and we had 10 architects or so, and so it was more management. And that's when I realized that's not what that's not what I'm good at. And I guess even with a few employees, I wasn't really good at that either. So as a sole practitioner, you don't have to manage other people. And again, I truly enjoyed working with other people. It's tremendous to interact with other people from a design standpoint. But the the management of the firm is, I guess that's my weak point. And eventually, now I'm back by myself, and I only have my life partner to to look over my shoulder once in a while. But I get to, I just, as long as the clients know what I'm doing, and I can satisfy them, then life is good.
Good, very good. So it was that managing of people versus managing of a project, and having an intimate relationship with the client and the project itself, that you can pace, right? You can self-pace that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people I know who have small firms have, they hire, like my wife's firm. They had a kind of book a bookkeeper, a person that kind of took care of all that, the firm HR stuff, and so a lot of firms can either hire somebody like that, even small firms, or you outsource that. But I guess I'm enough of a control person that I was reluctant to give up any control over anything. So I'm here by myself again.
So you manage all your books, you manage all the financials, what comes in, what comes out. How many projects do you have at a single time?
Well, now I have two. You alluded to my long experience. I'm actually, oh, my camera dimmed down there. Oh, there.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm on a glide path to retirement. I don't know that I'm ever going to retire. As a sole practitioner, all it takes is, my professional license, liability insurance. Always have that. That's one of the, actually, if we go to some questions, that's one of my items of advice. So liability insurance, and then, keep my software current, new computer once in a while. So it really doesn't take a lot to keep your practice going. And then if an occasional client, wants me to work with them, then, I'll keep doing this indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a good pace. And I may want to. So, because I contrast when I'm interviewing people from the SFX, my firm is a good size now, right? We're getting into always 9, 10, 11, and between that number, right? So, and we had a meeting not too long ago, and we were talking about more people. One more people doesn't necessarily mean more profit. We learned that as a case study. We studied how many people we had last year versus how many people we have this year, and we grew by about 45% as a company in staff members, but we only grew about 20% in profits. So you would say, well, wait a minute, if you almost grow by 50%, you should probably increase your profit by 50%. But also it diminishes the amount, because then it means more insurance coverages, more overhead. And also you do increase people over time every year or so. So essentially whatever the 20% profit that we've increased is not even 20% profit, because it's being eaten by the salaries. I didn't want to compare my payroll from July 2023 to July 2024, because I knew the answer was going to be shocking. And the answer may have been, I got to get rid of people. And I don't want to ever do that, because our mission is a little bit bigger than that. Our mission is to increase diversity in the field of architecture and design, and being able to do that on a consistent basis, and having enough diverse young people come in and out that can then get licensed and also continue the legacy forward and pass the baton. So, but you really have mastered that self-paced. I mean, are you ever anxious about money though? That's one thing. I am overly anxious about our payrolls every other week. I'm overly anxious about meeting our bottom lines. I'm overly anxious about ensuring that our staff members are properly rewarded. Sadly, that anxiety has bleeded into how I manage some clients and how I manage some projects. And I don't like that part. So looking at you makes me feel like, Darwin, you probably could do this alone. And by the way, I have an attic space just like the one you have right there, and a window exactly as you do right there in my home. Like I have a space exactly like you. And I'm like, what was it? Was it the appetite, my personal appetite to be a big firm and get big commissions and do big stuff? Was it a selfish one? Was it? I'm myself questioning as I listen to you. By the way, I'm questioning whether I'm doing the right thing or not. That's all.
Yeah, no, I think you alluded to that. I think you have there's an altruistic mission there of bringing younger people in and promoting them. And that's a wonderful that's a wonderful goal. So I think everybody has to decide what's the best fit for them in terms of firm size, project type. The one thing I will say, I might have mentioned it, I feel like I've been extremely fortunate to have great mentors. I had when the few employees I did have, they were all wonderful. And in a small firm, everybody has to pull their weight. And in a larger firm, yeah, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But I think in a small firm, it becomes very apparent if somebody is it can't. We basically can't perform, and some people are better at sort of one element, which in a large firm is fine. I think in a large firm you have to have a kind of a broader skill set, because you're gonna be thrown in, and sometimes you have to do things you're not necessarily comfortable with. The anecdote I have about that is when I was working on my own early on, and I didn't know how to detail. I was working on some. I don't remember what the project was, but there was some detail, and my strategy was always I kind of I draw around the edges, and then I kind of fill it in, and I realized, I'm not sure how to do this, and I'm looking around. There's nobody here, it's just me, and that's when I realized, if I'm going to have my own practice, I have to, everything stops with me. So that really was kind of a transformative experience for me, realizing, if I didn't know something, I had to have the confidence to figure it out, where to go for the information. And I think that's the case with everybody in a small firm, whether it's, you're leading your firm, but even the younger people, and they have to have that drive to be able to figure out things. Whereas in a larger firm, again,
Yeah, a
It's
larger firm. I always relate a larger firm
yeah,
with. I'm not sure. It's like a car with multiple engines or horsepowers, right? You sometimes don't realize what blew up because you could continue to be moving forward, unless you really audit how far you're moving forward and how often you're changing oil or whatever. You wouldn't know, but on a smaller firm, it's four tires. One's flat, you're done, right?
exactly.
Even big trailers, they have a lot of tires. So one of them goes flat, nobody notices it. It's just a little shaky, and you can keep on going forward. Smaller firm, you really have to always be checking those elements and making sure that nothing goes wrong. So and that's a question for me personally. I think eventually I'll end up having a smaller subsegment of flow where I just don't deal with some of the things I deal with every single day personally. But now again, this is all about you. So but I like to do that contrast, right? Because you're the opposite spectrum of me. So now in that question I asked earlier, do you ever worry about money? Like, how do you? Is it less of a concern for you? That my anxiety is every 2 weeks I have a lot of people's responsibilities under my shoulder, right? Like, it's right on
No,
me.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, the stress when I had employees was always there. It was a little less when I was on my own, before and after I had employees. But yes. But interesting. So I only paid once a month. So I only had that stress once a month. Although my employees, when they first started, I think several of them said, "What, you don't pay twice a month?" And I said, "No, it's once a month. I do the billing. I can only deal with that once a month." And that's they accepted that. But yes, I think any person running a small firm, there's that underlying stress of making sure that you pay you pay your employees and that you pay them fairly, equitably. That's that yes, that there's underlying stress there. That without employees, that at least I don't have that. But it's
How is it
still.
about you? How is it with you? Like, how do you? I
Oh,
mean, you are also the opposite spectrum of me, for instance, and this is a good contrast, because there are a lot of things that probably have already been taken care of in the sense of like, I mean, I wish, right? Like mortgages are less, thing payments are less. You no longer want to, I'm on the other side where
yeah,
my partner and I want to go party and
you,
have
you're
spend a lot
going
of
up
money,
this
right?
way.
Yeah, exactly. You are on the other side where like, well, these things are already paid off. Like, things are life is pretty good. You know what I mean? And that probably even drives how you bill and how your fees are structured. Although we don't want to get into the specific of the fee, but I want to understand, how is it? You only have two active projects right now, as you mentioned. There are others that probably come back from time to time,
Yeah,
and you got to mitigate in some way or another. But like that, is there stress still with you on the financial side or no?
it's largely gone away. Again, I'm close to retirement age, so it's but having said that, rewinding back to where, when I was your age, not only is it it was important to pay my employees, pay myself equitably, but also you save for retirement, and that's sort of finance 101. And that does, I can tell you, setting aside a certain amount each month, as much as you can, really pays off in the long run. And that's extremely important. You can't forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, at whatever age, you have to, that's just part of running a business and being a good business person, is that you do need to save for retirement. So again, getting close to that myself. The years of oh, what's that? Years of doing that really does pay off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, good. Very good. So now, on that said, you were mentioning basically you carry your business everywhere you want in the whole world with a current laptop or desktop with the current softwares, your liability insurance, your architectural license, and that's it pretty much, right?
That's it pretty much.
Anywhere
Yeah,
you go, you got your business with you, which is super amazing.
so the good thing about that is, I can, I've had a lot of flexibility working on my own. My wife and I do travel quite a bit. So one of either the good things is that we can do that as long as the clients know that, but I do have to be available wherever I am in the world. So, having a laptop with all my information sometimes can be, essential. You get an email or a text or a call from a contractor saying, what about this detail? Or I can't get, this, or the client calls and decides to, they want to change something when, particularly when things are under construction. And sometimes, I might be in another country, on a biking trip. And then so that evening I have to, draw a detail and send it to them because that's.
So that part is another one I wanted to understand. How is the work-life balance when it comes to being a solopreneur versus having staff members?
Oh,
How many hours you put in a week or so, right?
Well, probably similar to you. I think it's really no different. There's you're almost always available, and maybe even now it's hard for me to stop or to shut off work. I know
I have drawn a line though. Saturdays and Sundays I take no calls for work at all, no matter what, no matter who, no matter what's going on. And I don't take calls before, let's say, 8 a.m. or so.
And that's that's you have
that was recent as of like the last 6-7 months, by the way, because I burned out a little bit. So
you have to set some boundaries, and I think that's unique to each individual. When like in general, for years I haven't met on the weekends with a client. Well, very occasionally if it's a really good client I might, but generally it's like no weekend.
Yeah, because you consider that part of your own enjoyment, right? Like it's like, well, you know what, let's all sit down at a little coffee shop and talk about this, and it's not necessarily work. Because I think there's another part of being a solopreneur that you probably can indulge doing that. You could probably afford to do that, with some clients. But it's turning more into a pure business. It's a transaction, and that's about it. Because even the great clients at the end of the day turn into his business, right? Like at the end of the day, no favors, no good deed goes unpunished, right? So it's like, oh, I did this for you, you did this for me. Wait a minute, So that's another thing I have learned now over the 7 years of flow, is I have no client friends anymore. And if they're going to be a friend, then they can't be my client. So therefore I assign it to someone else within the firm to manage it. And they do call me to complain about X, Y, and Z. But I would say, hey, I can only advocate for X, but I do not know the specifics of the project. I do not get involved.
Yeah, interesting. When with the rise of social media, I started before that, but my one rule was I would never be, I would never be a friend, or I would never connect with a client. And so once I finish a project, that's different. But I don't interact with them on social media at all.
So I've noticed, because one thing is, so I'm creating my own philosophy with that, by the way, Thomas, and it is during the dating stages, I may be okay with following and talking. The moment the relationship gets serious, I will withdraw and block some of that stuff gradually over time. Because there was one situation that happened that was personal to me, where the client turned really, really bitter and used some personal information of me and my children to do pay odds that said horrible things about me and my family. So that was that happened only once, thank God, but that was enough for me to say, nope, I'm going to create a public Instagram account and a private Instagram account. The private one will be just for family members and close ones, that because over the years we lose touch, and it's nice to see how the kids are doing. It's nice to see how their dogs are doing. It's just really nice to do that. Right?
I do that exactly the same.
So the public one is like, and my partner always says, well, Darwin, you're showing yourself as a single man there. It's like, well, it's to protect you and protect everybody else, to be honest. It's nothing to do with any other nefarious, alternative motives or anything like that. But ulterior motives. So that's it. I learned that. And so, but at the beginning of the dating stage, because some of them I meet like that, I meet some of my young young entrepreneurs grind their clients through those things, and they like what I do and I like what they do. And why wouldn't I work with someone that, like, let's say, races sports cars and I like sports cars? So it's pretty cool stuff. But then at some point you really, and what I've been doing is I talk to my business partner, because we got two principals here. Hey, Marcos, I think this may become more of a project for you because of the way that I acquired it. And I want to still do a table touch with them from time to time, but I wouldn't want to be managing it because there's a conflict of interest, and I am biased. And I am biased in a bad way because I would bill them differently. I would call them differently. I will invoice differently. I would give them more. It would be horrible for the company. It would really be horrible because I'm a giving individual when it comes to that, right? So that's so
Yes.
I lose. I've lost thousands and thousands of dollars because of that. So
It's really, yeah, it's challenging when they're your friends to have a business relationship. And I've done numerous projects for friends, and fortunately, I think I can't think of someone who's not a friend now, but it's challenging when,
mhm,
oh gosh, can I rationalize all the time that I've spent this month on that project, and can I bill all
mhm,
those hours? And you have to, it is still difficult for me to remove myself, even for the clients that I didn't know previously, because in the projects that I do, they're very personal. They're for the most part, they're people's homes, and you do get, as much as you don't want to, you do get involved sort of personally with them, and so it is hard to stay removed and to just treat it as just a strictly business relationship. But ultimately, particularly with employees, you have a responsibility to your employees, and so that can't get in. Your client relationship can't get in the way of the employees ultimately, because you're responsible. I mean, there's a stress because you're responsible for not only the clients, but the client's family.
mhm.
Uh, you want them to succeed, and you said, the stress of paying every 2 weeks. That's, it's there, but so that's why it's important to maintain the business relationship with the clients, however difficult it is. Again, don't it's what I say, not necessarily how I act. But
But you've been learning over the years, and
well,
that's important. You've been learning to manage. And that said, I did want to ask you. Just give me 1 second here. So I did want to ask you, why residential architecture as a practice that mainly focuses on that. It seems like you don't even touch any other commercial projects.
I yes, I have
Why?
dabbled, but I I guess it's the I hadn't thought about this, but it probably gets back to my wanting to control things, that the projects are small enough, and there is that personal relationship with the client, that I really enjoy. Listening to the client, and figuring out how I can manifest their personality in the architecture.
Mhm.
That's the most or that is almost the most that's the about the most enjoyable thing for me in doing architecture. But also, the projects are quite small, so I can do them by myself.
Why is
uh,
a typical project for you?
um Size, or yeah, so
In
the
general, like what's your bread and butter? Like what do you
yeah,
typically
so
do?
for whatever reason, my client base, I have some professional friends that they do single family residential work, but the houses they do are 8,000, 6,000, 10,000 square feet, and my typical project might be somewhere in the 2 to 3,000 square feet,
Mhm.
so much smaller. I have done a lot of vacation cabins. Some are bigger than cabins, but so they're smaller projects. And I guess those are the projects that I've enjoyed most.
Mhm.
I found that out through working at the several smaller firms that I did. That those are the projects that really were most interest to me. I think it's more challenging from an architectural standpoint to do a good smaller project than a larger project. It's I find that it's really interesting and challenging to just pare things down to the essentials. So a smaller project really is makes you do that. So
Exactly, and that's what you mentioned about a smaller firm. Staff members and owners need to have a very broad variety of skill sets to be able to develop all of these projects in a cohesive way. It's interesting that you have a very kind of particular niche. It's not the big Mac mansions, 6,000+ square feet or anything like that, but it's this group. How do you get your clients? I know a lot of solo practitioners, solopreneurs will want to be like, how do you get your clients, to keep you busy? Is it often consistently busy? Do you have not projects at some point? Like, how is that?
So I've always had several projects. Usually I've had more than what I have now. Usually I would think, I haven't looked, but I would guess even since I've been, back on my own, I probably would have 6 projects more or less. They with the projects that I do, there's sort of intense work getting ready, for different milestones or different meetings, and then the client might, not sit on those, but have to think about them. So then there's no work on that particular project. So projects can go on like that for some months. I think I'd say the typical projects I do last about 2 years total, maybe two and a half. So from inception to the finish of construction. Sometimes
So you get involved with the CA and all of that stuff, right? And I want to know more about that part too. How do you structure your contracts and milestones and things like that? Like, how does it typically work?
Yeah, actually, I'll back up 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned how I get my clients, and I didn't actually really address that. So my client base has really grown organically from when I started, and it's almost all word of mouth, with the exception of clients that have seen something that I've done that's been published. So I've had projects in books, magazines, now blogs, and occasionally I'll get a client through those. But the vast majority are just word of mouth. Somebody will, they'll be a friend of a past client, and I find that those are really the best clients. That they're if you get along with a client and a good friend of theirs wants you to work on it, then you probably are going to get along with them. And it's at least doing what I do, it's really the personal relationship. It's the relationship you might have with your attorney or a doctor, say, same with your architect. So I'm sorry, I went backwards. You were asking a CA, a structure so
No, that was good, by the way. That was perfect. So word of mouth or organic work is really the years have compounded interest on you, which is a positive thing. So you don't have to try or pay for ads or start doing any of those things, right?
Yeah,
Basically, barely, right? It's always consistent for you. So you've had to decline some work too because of that, right? Like you're so busy sometimes, right?
Yes, and it's particularly when you have employees, it is so hard to turn down work.
I can't turn down work actually.
It is. I can tell you. Yes,
I elongate the timelines and elongate the way that we're gonna approach them, but I can't turn down work.
It is so difficult. But sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes you interview with for a project and you just have a bad sense about it, and usually your sense is correct. And I know from my past experience, once I agree to do a project, I want to do everything I can to make that project a success.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the times that I felt like I haven't done the best job that I can is when I've been too busy and I can't spend the time that is needed on those projects. Fortunately, since I've been back on my own, that's I haven't had that issue. But I know particularly with employees, you get spread thin sometimes, and and that's not a good situation. And so I think you want, as a small firm owner, you want to try to make sure you have the best possible outcome for every project, and that way those past clients will be your biggest promoters. and ensure you get work. But if you don't do a good job, and there have been some projects where I felt like I should have I could have spent more time. And to me, I think if I spend enough time, I know it's going to be a good project. It's going to come out well. And that's the tug, I think, with employees. When you have larger people that you're responsible for, you want to you want everybody to succeed, but sometimes you need to spend the time yourself, and you're wearing a lot of hats, you're doing a lot of things. And that is to me, the hardest thing about running having a small firm is that balance of working and letting the employees or your coworkers. I think of them as coworkers, not employees. You're all in it together. But that's again, the amount of time that's needed for that is sometimes challenging.
Good thing that you say that you think of them as co-workers rather than employees. It's good to ensure that they also think of you the same way. Because sometimes you are a co-worker for some things and you are their boss for some other things, and that line can never really be broken either, right? In my recent meeting, we actually said the same, that we've always treated everybody the same. But I wanted to make sure everybody understood that we weren't the same, because there were some requests that felt like that I was under them in a fashion, right? You can never really do that. It's like my children, I always have to let them know, under this roof, I pay the roof. I'm the boss. I'm not just your dad to buy you ice cream. I'm also your dad to tell you when you're doing something wrong. So that's good. That's good stuff. Now, going back to how you structure your contracts over the years, what is it like, Tom, to, like, okay, I call you now, I have this little cabin in the middle of the woods that I want to do. What do you do? How is it?
So, actually, I was going to go back to some advice that a friend of mine gave me when I
That's fine. Go right ahead.
practice.
Yeah, go right ahead.
The two things he said,
Because I am going to ask you the top 5 pieces of advice that you have for all architects.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you that anyway. So save it.
So he said, get liability insurance. That way you can sleep at night, and always have a written contract. So
Good.
with a few exceptions, you have a friend and you've done multiple projects for them. And
has that a section ever become a good deed going unpunished for you? Has it ever happened that you do the exception and you regret doing the exception?
No, it hasn't. Knock on wood. It hasn't. But the truism, you always need a written contract. And I will say, I can't remember when I've had to refer to a written contract after we've signed it. My clients have been amazing. If there's an issue, communication is prime. You have to be able to communicate with your client. If they have an issue, you hope that they're going to come to you. And if you have something that that you want to say to them, you need to say it, so that there's clear communication. Some of my clients see this, they might question that, but yeah. So I've always used an AIA contract. I always have a limit of liability in the contract that relates to my limit on my liability insurance.
And typically, what amount do you typically put on those? Is it the amount of the cost of your design services? Is it the amount? What do you typically limit it to?
It's more than that. Yeah. So I do put it. I balance that depending on the size of the contract. Can I talk about? You say my liability insurance is a $2 million policy. So
that's fine. Typically, it's like that. Like I have, I think it's 1 million, then 2 million. It's typically like that. So that's not.
Mine is 2 million, and I think project per project it's 1 million. But that would change. Whoever might be seeing this, that's dependent on your project type. And but yeah, so my limit of liability is I sometimes have an escalating clause if I'm not sure exactly what the ultimate scope will be, but it's some hundreds of thousands usually. But I try to, my goal is to manage that so that none of the total projects that I have worked on recently, don't that doesn't my limit doesn't exceed my policy. But again, knock on wood, I have not had I've not had any issues that
Probably wasn't more bumpy when you had staff members versus when you're doing it by yourself. Like, was there more issues maybe arising when you had staff members versus when you were doing it alone?
Not really. It was the same. Always
I
have a
mean, you
turnaround.
never had 20, 10, 15 people. So you
No,
had,
no. Yeah,
four.
I only had
So,
four.
so it was easier to manage. And it was a degrading four, meaning 4, 3, 2, nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like that. Now that said, so again, that typical phone call, Tom, like I call you right now. I want to do a cabin. It's for me and my kids to get to mingle and connect. What's the answer? Like, how do you proceed? How do you engage? What's the process like with you?
Yeah. So I meet with the client. We sometimes it's I ask for a written program. I show them some written programs that I've gotten
No, it's a
as
phone call.
examples.
I'm with you on the phone right now. Hey Tom, I
Oh,
wanna cabin. I
oh,
heard
I
of
said,
you. I saw a magazine,
yeah,
and I loved what you do. Uh, I want to know more about how you work, and I want to work with you if everything works out. So tell me, what do we take it from me? I've never done this before. Most people have never done this before. So,
yeah.
what do you do, Tom? What do you say to me?
Um, so I do tell them generally how long the process is going to be. So they'll say, oh, I want to work with you.
Typically, how long does it take?
Oh, now I'd say, if you come to me, I'd say, well, so you're looking probably about a year for design, well, 6 months to a year, depending on, how available you are.
6 months to a year to design a cabin.
Yep. And
Hmm.
then probably a year in construction. So it's not a short-term relationship. So we want to make sure that,
Have you had some clients that say, "Oh, I need it in 6 weeks, I need it in a month," and things like that?
yeah, and then you say, well, then you're talking to the wrong person.
Okay.
But yeah, so usually it's like, okay, so how long is this gonna take? How much is this gonna cost?
Typically,
So,
I don't want to know the specific price, but how do you come up with your price? That's important. The how, it's
so,
important for me to understand
so,
that.
so the first thing is construction. Like, how much do I need? They'll say, oh, so I saw this thing you did, that you designed, and so what's it going to cost me to build it? And so depending on, sometimes it's funny, sometimes they say, oh, I just saw something you did and I knew it was in a magazine, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to interpolate and you say, okay, so that was, say, that was 2,000 square feet. And so you say, okay, well, so now current prices, it's $500 a square foot, so you're talking about $1 million minimum. That's
Mm-hmm.
construction.
Mm-hmm.
And then the soft costs, my fees, property. You have to, often or most of the time, the clients actually have property, because I will tell them if they don't have a site, I can't start the design.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the two things are I have to understand the site. I have to understand the clients before I can work on the design.
Mm-hmm.
But usually they have a site. But if they don't, they have to buy the site, and so that's and then they have soft cost if they if they're going to get a loan. The other costs, furnishings, landscaping. Um, my
Do you
costs.
teach them about that stuff? Because most of
Yeah,
them don't know. So you tell them, "Hey, listen, there are
I,
all of these other costs." Do you,
yeah. So
So
once
go ahead.
once we agree to work together, most of them want references. Funny, I had one client that they saw my website and they just picked 3 projects from the website, and they said, we want to talk to those clients. One of them I hadn't talked to in like 10 years, maybe it was 15 years. It was an older project, and I thought, oh, okay. So I emailed them and I said, I have these potential clients and they want to talk to you. And ended up, they were all very willing to give me a reference. But yeah, so usually people want to know, they want references, and I say, please call them. And if you can't, that's why it's important not to burn any bridges, because you never know who you might need as a reference. But hopefully you have some past clients that will be good references, at least, for the type of work I do. That's super important. So they want to, they interview or they talk to my references, and then they might say, okay, we want to work. And then once we sign a contract, I say, I give a description of the project, a little cabin in the woods, 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom and whatever. And I come up with a design construction budget, because you have to, they want to know approximately what it's going to cost, and that's then what the fee is based on.
Did you base it on the percentage of construction costs?
I typically do, but I know other people that do hourly with a fixed max. Sometimes it's a maximum. Some people do schematic design, on an hourly basis, and then do the rest of the project on a fixed amount. There are different ways to structure it. I do a percentage, but there are different ways of doing that, and that's sort of up to how the individual or firm structures their projects.
Now, the percentage is based on your own estimate of the costs, or do they provide you with a and does it get refined after they acquire a contractor and you update it as needed? How do you follow that? I've never done the percentage of construction because I don't do cost estimating often, so I don't like cost estimating much. And sometimes clients can find things cheaper depending on the contractor they can get. There's somebody that can do it for nearly nothing, and then somebody that can do it for, and then I will lose if they get some, contractor that doesn't really charge the state, the standard. So yeah.
So I start with I think of it as a design construction budget. So I agree with the client, as I said, say it's $500 a square foot, 2,000 square feet, their budget's $1 million. And then I develop a spreadsheet, this is what it is per square foot. And then these are the other costs that you might need, that you have to consider, furnishings, landscaping, whatever other things might be involved in the project, professional fees, permitting fees, and then that is confirmed whenever there's a contractor involved. And fortunately, I've worked with a number of really good contractors, and that's usually, that's an essential part of a really successful project, is having the contractor that does a really good job. And again, some of the clients come with their, they know a contractor. There are many good contractors even here that I've never even heard of that, turn out to be great. But that's an essential part. So that is a question I have before we sign a contract. They may say, my brother-in-law is the contractor, or I've worked with this other contractor, so I try to find out about that contractor. Or they may say, like you said, we saw that little cabin in the woods. Who was the contractor for that? And so I may often the clients ask for suggestions. So I usually give them several suggestions, because there can be a liability issue if you suggest a contractor and things don't turn out so well.
No, we actually have a list of like 10 or 15 within the area, and we haven't signed a waiver afterwards saying in big red letters, do you own diligence? This is just the starter's kit for courtesy purposes only. We're not related to them in any way, shape, or form. We've never been paid by them in any way, shape, or form. Proceed with caution. And then they sign it, and then they know.
And I always suggest,
they're actually very thankful that we're giving them that list, and I tell them why we probably wouldn't want to give them the list. I explain why, right?
I have, even if I've worked with a contractor numerous times, I tell the client that they should check the references. If nothing else, the general contractor may be great, but that plumber that was there, sometimes I never hear the stories that from the clients. All I hear is good news, and I don't hear about the other issues. So I always suggest to talk to at least 3 references from the contractor.
Yeah, we're having a problem here, Flo, with and it's our mission of increasing diversity in the field of architecture and design. It bites us in the butt a lot, because Then we engage with clients that have never done a project, but also they engage with contractors that don't know how to do a project. Lots of them, sadly, immigrants that don't even speak well the language and don't understand the rules and regulations. So when they engage into a contract agreement with the client and they don't understand how to read the plans and they don't understand a lot of these things, often they resource to the blaming games of the architect doesn't know what he's doing situation. And because that's a problem that Flow has, we don't get involved with CA. We are out of the picture. So often the projects are very small. I mean, we're talking about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 dollar projects, like little decks, little additions. Those are the worst, that the ones that bite us the most. The big projects don't really come back much because they hire reputable contractors that know how to do the job. They know all their little one could do. There are guys that just, sadly may have just crossed the border yesterday and think that they can build. And I don't want to, that's another discussion. But the issue is that I want to give all of them a chance, everybody a chance. Everybody deserves to work. Everybody deserves to eat, right? But that game of blaming and not knowing how the statutes work and the laws and regulations work is hurting us a lot. And I've been I've been getting a bitter feeling for our own mission. I'm like, should I take these clients? Should I work with these contractors in any way? Should I continue to do this if it's going to become an existential threat of my company and kill us all at the same time?
Yeah, I think you again, it's difficult to turn down work, but for some projects, I think they're better off. The potential clients are better off working with someone else, and so that's a really hard lesson that I still haven't completely learned. But I think it's important that that we all understand that as much as we don't want to turn down work, some clients are better with other people and not with us. And
are better with nobody.
Yeah, and I think so for me, there's
the projects that should never exist, right? There are projects that are
there's that fit. There's that fit between the client and the architect and the client.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So now going back to that, you're right. It could be a better fit for some other architect, right? Some other person under another set of circumstances. So this is all very instrumental. So I understand. They call you guide them through the process, give them the references, then issue a contract based on the estimated cost of construction, which gets revised after an actual contractor comes in. Well, how do you build them? Do you build them percentage across each phase? How many phases do you have? What's a typical, how many phases is typical? So you said it's 6 months to a year to do a project with you, to a year, meaning to getting a permit set and then construction kicks in?
Yeah. So, so when we agree on a budget, so then I know how much time, ultimately it comes down to how much time that we have to do the project, or I have to do the project now. And so I look at each month, fortunately I've done enough projects now that you look at it and you think, okay, this is where I am in this project. And so you think, am I halfway through the design? And then you look, I've spent half my hours. And if you haven't, then you have to, can I bill all the time? I have found as I've gotten older and since I've been working on my own, I actually am more efficient. So I rarely have that issue now where, unless the project scope dramatically changes, but I've rarely had that issue where I have to worry about, can I bill all my hours? But yeah, so it's the contracts that I use AIA contracts for the there's a kind of a medium size. There's like a 10 or 12 page contract, and it has schematic design development, construction documents, and construction observation. So those are by contract the phases, but in fact they flow one to another. And so in billing and sort of administration, I just look at it's sort of 2 or maybe 3 phases. There's from the start of design to when you do your your permit drawings or your construction documents, and then permitting, I guess, is kind of in there, but then it's during construction, that's the construction phase. So I kind of look at the percentages, and I actually have a simple spreadsheet that I've used since I started, and I have all my projects on there, and I just look at where I am in each month. Yeah, so here's a truism for so the most important thing in running a small firm is getting paid. The second most important thing is sending out invoices, because you're not going to get paid unless you get your invoices out. So that's yeah. So the two things, especially when you have employees, because like you said, every 2 weeks you've got to worry about getting paid. So you need to, the most important thing is for the firm to be paid.
I'm actually struggling a lot with that part lately. Before it wasn't a problem, but even the good clients are now a little bit slow with the payments and all that process. And that's one thing that me and my business partner feel very discouraged about the business lately, and it is that we put our souls and hearts into this profession and into all this work, and we know what the benefits and ramifications of our work is. And often, our percentages of fees are very low, typically very low. That's why we're very busy. So that's actually a bad signal, is a result, meaning you're too low, you're too busy because of that. And then you treat it the same way as you've already presented your fee. So you're very losing on the negotiations and the leverage of the relationship, because they are here, you are here. Your value is not really matching what the product itself is worth. We're changing our mindset at Flow Design Architects now, but it's hard when you come from a I don't know, developing country, but also start with a basement and start with this, all my cost is just this Revit software and I don't have a lot of overhead. And then you begin growing as a company and you still keep the mindset of this third world developing country mentality where you're just happy to work. You don't even know whether you're making money or not. And then you end up realizing at some point that you've been dragging issues, financial issues and struggles, and then they get so big that it's too big and you can't fix them. So we're now quickly pivoting. And the mindset is, well, if you want to go with this architect out of their basement, we are these architects out of this office, and we're a completely different place. Oh, such and such architect charges this way. I don't care. And I don't think you even notice that what they're giving you and what I'm giving you is completely different. So we're not going to, I know that I can stay at a hotel for $60 and he also has bed bugs, but I also know that I can stay at another hotel for $500 a night and he's got a whole casino and a pool. So, if you don't need the services I'm providing, then, we're not apples to apples. So I'm changing a lot, Tom, and it's become problematic to understand that shift and understand that shift is even on the staff members that we hired, we can no longer stay with the same young folks that just graduated. They're not going to get us to the next level. We got to have a rotation of X amount of young folks that graduated, X amount of seasoned folks that are going to be with us for a long time, and X amount of really superstars. You can't have a team full of superstars either, because then they're all going to fight for the ball. They're all going to fight for the spotlight too. So you don't want that, right? They're all going to fight for the top project.
I don't know about that, but that did bring
everybody's a superstar on their own way. So that's another way of looking at it. Yes,
you're right. Mm-hmm. So I'll put in a plug for a Small Firm Exchange. I think that's if there's a local chapter, that's a really great resource if you have concerns about running, any of the kind of nuts and bolts of running a firm, paying your employees, just how to run the firm. That's really important. I also will say, so in Seattle here, I'm part of a kind of a loose group. I guess there are about a dozen of us, and we're all competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So we get together. Well, since COVID happened, we get together less, but we'd get together every 2 or 3 months. We have lunch, and it is funny because we're all sort of this similar age. We do very similar projects, and I can't tell you how many times we'll get together and somebody will say, "Oh, I just interviewed for this project," and like 2 other people would say, "Oh, I interviewed for the same project." And but so I don't think of those people as competitors. They're really peers, and they're really a support group. So someone, I get an email from them occasionally, and somebody say, well, I've had an issue with this contractor, and this is the situation. What, I could do this or I could do that. What do people think? And so it's often things like that. Or, I need to find a really good civil consultant. And though the most recent one I had didn't work out so well, who's everybody using? So there are questions like that that really are important. And so it's great to have this support group of peers that you can turn to, because sometimes you don't know the answer to those things. But if you have this larger support group, small firm exchange in your area, or the state, or again, for me, I also have this group of architects that I'm part of, and it's easy to email, and sometimes you only hear from one or two, but everybody's looked at it, and you get really good advice.
That's right.
So,
Tom,
yeah.
I now want to put you right there on the spot. Top five full rules for success for Tom Lawrence. The top 5 things that you believe have gotten you as far as you are right now. What are those items that all of these other architects maybe starting out right now, maybe in the mid careers, maybe on the late careers, but they haven't picked up those things, those skills? What are your top 5 rules for success?
Okay, so I didn't actually prep for that one, so this is a curveball.
But that's okay. I'll throw you the other one too after. But yes, go ahead.
But so I'm looking. So I did write down some things about my architectural philosophy. So I think I can kind of turn that this way. So I think the number one thing is to be a good listener. That I have worked for some architects in the past. I remember meeting with some clients. And we get back to the office, and the my boss says, "Oh, let's do this." And I said, "Wait, didn't you hear the client? They didn't want that. Yeah, forget that." And anyway, so so number one, you need to be a good listener, and sometimes it's very difficult with architecture, because you have an idea. This is the way we should design this. This is the approach, and then the client or consultant sometimes will say, "Oh, why, we should do it a particular way." Yeah, I had a client, and I remember it was a residential project. Put the kitchen here, and I thought, oh no, that's all backwards. We need to have it in the front of the house, not in the back of the house, because of the view. And anyway, so I said, to humor that client, okay, I'll do it that way. And it turned out it was the right thing to do. So yeah, so good listener. It's actually the number. Maybe this is number one thing is, you need to have fun. To me, I think if there are so many hassles, things to get stressed out about, if you can't have fun at the end of the day, if you can't come in and say, that was really rewarding. I had a great time. These people I'm working with, if you have employees, coworkers, if you can't have a good time, you should be doing something else, because your life is going to be miserable, and we ultimately we all need to be happy. So have a good time. Let's see. I did mention, yeah. So my it was like 3. So from an architectural standpoint, to me, the site and the client are the most important things. So again, part of that's being a good listener to your listening to your client. So the clients, for my line of work, clients are everything, but also where you're designing. That it's the physical surroundings, the environment, the culture. Sometimes if you're designing in Boston, you're probably going to have a different strategy than if you're out in the West in the woods somewhere. So there's a culture that goes with that. And I think that actually can be reflected in the design. So I think, is that a rule for success? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, having a strategy to center your project on the client and the site is if you disregard the client and you disregard the site, it's certainly going to be a failure. But yes.
So let's see. Here's another one for me. Nothing beats a good plan. So I think you can tell a lot about a building with with the plan. So that I don't know if that's a way to be successful, but in the design world, for me, nothing beats a good plan, except sometimes a good section. Uh, but I think,
A good plan is excellent. A good section, maybe, right?
yeah. So good, yeah. So sectionally, you look at great buildings, and there's usually a great section in there, and those are two-dimensional things. But I think that's we now we're designing everything three-dimensionally, but I think ultimately, not ultimately, but it's also important to think about these things two-dimensionally, that from a plan standpoint, we've got gravity, we can't fly. We walk through, we roll through, we crawl through,
Mm-hmm.
through the spaces, swim through. But yeah, so for me, a good plan is just so it can be so elegant, and again, sometimes a good section is really really amazing. And then for me, the experience of architecture is more important than the formal. So how you move through a space, and that gets to the three-dimensional aspects. So I don't know if that's my one of my rules for success, but I always think how are the client how are people going to experience this more than the formal relationship. That's still really important, but it's ultimately it's how you interact with the space, how the structures that you design interact with the site, with the surroundings. That
I like
connects.
this, So basically, your five rules that you mentioned right now might not be the top five. Like if you were, because I put you on the spot, but listening to the client, having fun, having a strategy to how to center your project around the site and the client. Number four, nothing beats a good plan means how do you move through the space? And
Yeah,
number five, the experience is much more important than how that has expressed itself formally. It's how that was perceived versus what it actually looks like, right?
yeah. That
So
might
the
that might even
sense,
be six, but that's okay.
yeah. No, that's fine. Now, things Tom Lawrence wish he knew when he started the profession. You can tell me as
Oh,
many as you want,
Jesus.
but I'll limit it to three top things that you wish you knew. Because hey, going back, you saw some drawings from one of your grandfathers, or that was an
Yep.
engineer. You like those plans. You got into MC school and North Carolina School of Architecture, and then voila. But even the realization wasn't then. It was after you started practicing that you really and went to your masters that you really started really understanding it. Like it took a while. You followed your curiosity, but it took a while to season that until
Yeah.
you went to your graduate school. That's when you really seasoned it.
Yeah.
So,
So that's three things.
but you wish you knew, that you're like, oh, I didn't know I was gonna have to do X. I didn't know I was gonna have to prepare for X. I didn't know X, Y, and Z.
I
Right?
I think so. One of the things is what if I knew what I was good at. Fortunately, I think I kind of fell into working on a certain scale of project that I'm very comfortable with, and I known that even earlier. I wouldn't try to work for a large firm at one point. So understanding what you're good at, or what I'm good at, I think is I wish I'd known that sooner. I mentioned, I don't think I'm a very good manager.
Mhm.
Uh, I know that. Uh, so had I known that sooner, maybe I would have changed some things. Maybe I would have structured my firm a little differently. When yeah, there are different ways to structure a firm, and maybe rather than bring these people on as employees, maybe they would have been partners. Um, you know, let's so knowing what I'm good at, and knowing that I'm not a good manager. The third one, oh, so I didn't think I guess I always thought of myself as just an okay architect, but working for the two really good firms that I did, they really they were mentors, and they made me realize that I could do some meaningful work. I could do some meaningful architecture.
So the fact that those firms believed in you and empowered you and guided you made you feel like I'm not just an okay getting by kind of architect. I can do great things.
Oh, I can, yeah, for great.
And you've won award. Yeah. So guess what? Some other people have thought that what you've done is great.
Yeah, but
so at this point, you have done great stuff.
Yeah, but those, and it wasn't just that they empowered me, but they had a high expectation. Working for them, just doing average work was not okay, and so there was stress working for them, but it was good in a way, because it made me realize, oh yeah, like I can do this. And if I hadn't worked for them, and I guess they didn't believe in me, that I don't know that I would have, I don't know that I certainly wouldn't do as, whatever success I've had, it's because of the lessons that I learned from them, that I should have high expectations for the work that I do. And if I don't, then I should be doing something else.
Ooh, very good. Very good. So Tom Lawrence, how do we find you? How does people connect with you besides the SFX, right? Which we're going to be seeing these videos coming soon, and going viral, because you are an amazing individual. The things you've shared with me have made me think a lot about architecture in a different way. It made me think about my retirement plan and ending up being like Tom Lawrence, the Tom Lawrence, in my little attic space, vaulted ceiling architectural office doing kick-ass work. So how do we find you? How do we connect with you if anybody wants to find more about your work?
So if you Google Lawrence Architecture, there is another Lawrence Architecture in Colorado, I think, but they do other work. But yeah, Lawrence Architecture in Seattle, you can Google that and find me through that. And it's always fun to work with really great clients. So if there are any out there that are looking for it, if there are any potential employees, that's I'm not the right place for that, but Doran, maybe you are.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tom. We'll stay in touch. We'll connect, and pleasure connecting this hour or so with you after all of our little struggles with the camera. But everybody, check the SFX, check our YouTube channel, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll stay in touch. See you later, Tom. Bye.